He stood beside his parents as police closed in, the weight of something unthinkable hanging in the air. Just hours earlier, he had been running through backyards, jumping fences, trying to escape questions that were growing darker by the minute. Now there was nowhere left to go. What happens when the person you trust most becomes the person you fear? On a cold November morning in 2022, officers in Rome, Georgia, discovered a Toyota Prius partially submerged in a creek. The vehicle wasn't wrecked in a dramatic collision. There were no obvious signs of a high-speed crash. It looked almost as if it had simply been left there abandoned in silence. When authorities ran the license plate, it came back to 21-year-old Aaron Davis. For local officers, the name wasn't unfamiliar. Aaron was known as a polite, responsible young man. A recent graduate of Brigham Young University, he had his whole future ahead of him. According to his family, he had been planning to visit friends in Rome before continuing on to see his girlfriend in Alabama, but he never arrived. Police contacted Aaron's father, who was just as confused as they were. Aaron wasn't the type to disappear without telling someone. His phone had been going straight to voicemail, no texts, no calls, no updates. And now his car was sitting in a creek miles from where it should have been. As concern turned into alarm, Aaron's father filed a missing persons report. Investigators began retracing his last known movements. The trail quickly led them to someone important, his longtime friend, Brandon Ryner. Brandon and Aaron had known each other since middle school. Over the years, their friendship had continued into adulthood. By all accounts, they were close. Aaron had driven more than 60 miles to visit Brandon the night before he vanished. When police called Brandon, he sounded cooperative. He explained that they had started drinking around noon. According to him, Aaron, who didn't drink often, became sick and went upstairs. Brandon claimed he eventually went to sleep, and when he woke up in the early morning hours, Aaron was gone. His car had disappeared too. At first glance, the explanation seemed plausible. A young man drinks too much, feels ill, leaves in the middle of the night. It wasn't impossible. But something didn't sit right. Officers decided to visit Brandon's home in person. He allowed them inside without resistance. He repeated the same story. The tone was calm, almost detached. As they walked through the house, officers noticed several doors were locked. Eventually, they were led upstairs to the room where Aaron had supposedly become ill. The smell hit them first, a strong chemical odor, cleaning products, recently used. Then they saw the stains. What appeared at first to be dark patches on the carpet quickly became something far more concerning. There was a significant amount of blood near the bed. Not a small amount consistent with someone simply feeling unwell. This was something else. Investigators exchanged glances. The atmosphere shifted instantly. When confronted with the discovery, Brandon's behavior changed. Without warning, he bolted. He ran out of the house, leapt over a fence, and disappeared into neighboring yards. Officers pursued him but lost sight of him among the houses. The calm, cooperative friend had suddenly turned into a fleeing suspect. As the search intensified, police contacted Brandon's parents, Jeremy and Rachel. They were stunned. They believed their son had been home. They had no idea he had run from officers. When Jeremy arrived at the house, he discovered Brandon's cell phone. That device would soon become one of the most critical pieces of the investigation. At first, Jeremy hesitated to give the phone to authorities. As a father, he was caught between protecting his child and confronting a reality he could barely process. But something he saw on that phone appeared to shake him deeply. Investigators later uncovered disturbing writings and notes saved on the device. Some contained dark, graphic reflections. Others appeared to outline steps taken after Aaron's death tasks, like cleaning, doing laundry, and crafting a narrative about Aaron becoming sick. There was even a drafted message describing how Aaron had thrown up badly, and possibly had blood in it, an explanation that now sounded less like concern and more like preparation. Whatever Jeremy read convinced him of something devastating. Within hours, he contacted police and informed them that Brandon was ready to surrender. When Brandon arrived at the station with his parents, he appeared eerily composed. There were no visible signs of panic, no tears, no visible shock. Just a quiet presence as officers escorted him inside. During questioning, he requested an attorney almost immediately. Legally, that was his right. The interrogation ended before it truly began, but his parents were still willing to talk. In a difficult conversation with detectives, Jeremy revealed that Brandon had struggled with mental health challenges in the past. Anxiety, intrusive thoughts, obsessive behaviors. He had even returned home from college due to worsening symptoms. Jeremy then provided crucial information: a location. An old cemetery area not far from the house? Investigators moved quickly. Behind a secluded section of the cemetery grounds, they made a grim discovery. Aaron's body had been buried and wrapped in bed sheets. The search was over. The worst fears had been confirmed. Authorities later determined that Aaron had been killed inside Brandon's home before being transported and buried. The evidence in the bedroom, the cleaning supplies, and the writings on the phone painted a grim picture of what had happened. Brandon was arrested and formally charged. Throughout processing and transport, officers observed something unusual. He remained calm, detached, almost emotionless. It unsettled many of the investigators who had worked the case from the beginning. But the hardest task still remained informing Aaron's parents. When detectives delivered the news, the heartbreak was immediate and overwhelming. Aaron had been a recent graduate. A young man with ambitions, relationships, and a future that had just begun. The loss was not only tragic, it was senseless. As the case moved toward trial, Brandon's defense explored the possibility of an insanity plea. His documented mental health struggles became part of the discussion. However, prosecutors argued that the evidence suggested awareness and intent. The alleged cleanup, the drafted messages, the burial. These actions pointed toward deliberate behavior rather than uncontrollable impulse. In July 2024, Brandon pleaded guilty. The courtroom was silent as the judge delivered the sentence. Life in prison without the possibility of parole. Justice in the legal sense had been served. But justice does not erase grief. For Aaron's family, the sentence could not restore birthdays, milestones, or conversations that would never happen again. It could not answer the haunting question that lingers in cases like this. Why? What causes someone to turn on a lifelong friend? Was it jealousy? A sudden conflict? A psychological break? Or something that may never be fully understood? Investigators believe the confrontation escalated after drinking. But the exact trigger remains known only to Brandon himself. And that silence may be the most unsettling part of all. True crime stories often focus on evidence, courtroom drama, and sentencing outcomes. But beneath the headlines are real families whose lives are permanently altered. A father who waited for his son to answer the phone. A mother who trusted a childhood friend. Parents forced to choose between love for their child and cooperation with the law. This case is a reminder of how quickly normalcy can unravel. One evening of celebration, one decision, one irreversible act. As we reflect on this tragedy, one question still echoes. If Brandon had not run that day, if police had accepted his initial explanation, how long would the truth have remained hidden? And perhaps even more chilling, were there warning signs that no one fully understood until it was too late?